Basin staff. And so, Madam Chair, I'll leave it to you to call the meeting to order when you're ready.
Thank you so much. Welcome to the Water Policy and Legislation Committee meeting for West Basin Municipal Water District. I assume we have a quorum. EJ, could you determine a quorum, please?
Yes, Madam Chair. We do have a quorum, but I'll allow Julie Fraser Matthews to call roll call.
Thank you.
Thank you, EJ. I'll begin by Director Houston.
Here.
Director Deere.
Here.
Director Williams.
Here.
Director Alvarez. And Chairwoman Gray.
Thank you. I'm here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I believe the first item would be public comments. Is there anyone on the line for public comments or there?
Madam Chair, we have not received any requests for public comment. However, if there's any member of the public that is with us virtually, if they would like to address the committee and board, please let us know now by raising your virtual hand. Madam Chair, I do not see any.
All right, thank you very much. And can you tell me the next item on the agenda, please?
Happy to do so, Madam Chair. The next item on the agenda is presentations, and staff does not have any presentation. However, if the chair might allow, I would like to address just a few things. Obviously, the month of September is the beginning of our Hispanic Heritage Month. And in speaking with the general manager, I did want to highlight, obviously, that did begin on September 15th and runs through September 26th. West Basin staff has been utilizing our social media to recognize this excellent opportunity to highlight our service area, our employees, and all the people that we represent. On September 29th, West Basin staff will be viewing a presentation and a documentary video acknowledging the Heritage Month and Hispanic and Latin culture. And lastly, staff will make a brief PowerPoint presentation before the board meeting on Monday, September 26th, acknowledging the Heritage Month. So we're very excited to bring that to you, and of course, you'll see that on Monday.
All right, thank you, EJ. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. Are there any questions or comments regarding that?
Yes, I did, Don Deere.
Yes, Don.
May I?
Director Deere, sure. President Deere.
Okay, I just want to comment that we reapportioned the districts again this time for the elections, and we increased the Hispanic voting power in some of the districts. I think that's something we should be mentioning.
All right, thank you, President Deere, for that.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Director Williams?
Just a question to staff. Are we going to celebrate this with the appropriate lunch?
I can certainly check with our staff. I do know that staff is asking if we could have our board meeting on Monday with the entire board present. And so with that, we would have maybe a lunch available for the directors if they'd like.
Yes, with the proper theme.
You mean tortillas and beer?
No beer, but definitely the tortillas and all the other stuff.
Okay, listen, I couldn't get out of the hospital Saturday, so I anticipate attending that meeting on Monday.
Oh, very good.
All right,
We'll
well, all right, Assistant General Manager, I think you heard a request from one of the directors to have a cultural dinner, a lunch representing Hispanic Heritage Month. And if there's no objection from anyone on any of our directors, then please make that request to the General Manager. Is there any objection to that from anyone? Okay, all right, then EJ, would you please make that request, okay?
Will do, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, anything else? Anything else before we move to the next item?
There's no other presentation.
Okay, the next item then?
Yes, Madam Chair, the next item that we have is item 5A under our action calendar. It begins on packet page 3, and it is related to a resolution number 09221173, authorizing the California Department of Water Resources grant application, acceptance, and execution for the Grass Replacement Plus program. For this presentation, we do have Tammy Hurley-High, our Water Policy and Resources Analyst, here for the presentation.
Thank you, EJ. Good afternoon, Chair Gray and board members. So this item is being brought to you today to, as EJ said, to request your consideration of adopting a resolution to authorize the California Department of Water Resources grant application acceptance and execution. This will help fund the district Grass Replacement Plus program. So DWR had announced $5 million in funding for the Los Angeles Integrated Water Management Program. We refer to that as the IRWIP program, to this funding area to support underrepresented communities and Native American tribes under phase 3 of DWR's Urban and Multi-Benefit Drought Relief Grant Program. So the Los Angeles Ventura IRWIP funding area has a disadvantaged community involvement program, and they are tasked with identifying eligible projects that fall under this category of funding. So the IRWIP DACIP task force has reviewed a total of 9 projects through a competitive process that has requested funding across the region.
Somebody needs to mute.
Please mute your phone.
Director Deere, if you could hit
Deere.
star 6, you will mute your phone, and then if you would like to speak, you can hit the star 6 again, and it'll release if you would like to speak. But at this time, we're getting some feedback.
Thank you, Jill.
You're welcome.
Great, thank you. So the IRWIP DACIP task force has reviewed a total of 9 projects through a competitive process that has requested funding across the region, which includes the Los Angeles, Ventura, and Upper Santa Clara River IRWIPs. So through this process, all of the project proponents has worked together to find a consensus to leverage funding resources in an effort to allow all of the project to be included on the grant application to DWR. So West Basin Municipal Water District Grass Replacement Plus program was the only local project that was identified. So West Basin project Grass Replacement Plus program was the only local project that was identified in the South Bay IRWIP subregion that could be eligible in applying for this funding in the amount of $300,000. So this additional grant funding for the Grass Replacement Plus program would build upon the district's existing program for outdoor focused water efficiency. An increase of a turf replacement rebate would apply to the properties located within Cal EPA Cal EnviroScreen disadvantaged community census tracts from $3 to $5. And also the funding would allow for residential design assistance, a free drought tolerant tree, educational webinars, and irrigation upgrades. So DWR has informed the IRWIP DACIP task force of the awarded funds for all of the 9 project selections. And this did include West Basin's Grass Replacement Plus program in the amount of $300,000. It is important to note that the funding awarded to West Basin will not require a cost share. So this program will improve outdoor water savings in priority areas located in disadvantaged census tracts. So the award is conditioned upon execution of a grant agreement with DWR. And at the time of the application, the project proponents were not required to adopt a resolution. Only the lead applicant, which is the Los Angeles County Flood Control District, on behalf of the DACIP task force. So since then, DWR has offered an option for West Basin to establish a separate agreement solely with DWR. So in an effort to establish this, a resolution would need to be authorized to enter into an agreement with DWR. So for this consideration, attachment A includes a resolution and attachment B includes a sample agreement, and the project representative would list West Basin Municipal Water District instead of the Los Angeles County Flood Control District. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. I would like to read the recommendation. So the recommendation is that the board approves resolution number 09-22-1173, a resolution of the Board of Directors of West Basin Municipal Water District, authorizing the California Department of Water Resources grant application, acceptance, and execution for the Grass Replacement Plus program.
All right, thank you, Tammy. Are there any questions? Please just speak. No questions. I'm okay with the recommendation moving forward. And who's the other member of this committee?
Director Deere.
Director Deere, are you in agreement to move it forward? Director Deere?
Director Houston then.
Director Houston, or Director Deere, if you hit the star and the 6, you'll be able to unmute yourself.
Director Deere? All right, well, we'll come back to him, but in the meantime, Director Houston, are you, is Julie, is he the alternate?
Yes, he is on the line.
Director Houston, do you agree moving it forward?
Yes, I do, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, thank you. We'll move that forward. And the next item, please.
Yes, the next item that we have for you is action item 5B. It begins on packet page 37. This item is related to an authorization for amended funding agreement with the State Water Resources Control Board for the Carson Regional Water Recycling Facility Phase 2B expansion project. And for this item, Tammy Hurley will be providing the presentation.
Thank you, Jay. So this item is being brought to you today to request your consideration of authorizing the general manager to sign an amended agreement from the State Water Resources Control Board for a loan and a grant to provide financial assistance with the Carson Regional Water Recycling Facility Phase 2B expansion project. So included in this memo is the amended agreement under attachment A. And for some background information, the district has an existing agreement with the State Water Resources Control Board for this project. A few years ago, back in October 2015, West Basin had submitted a funding application to the State Water Resources Control Board for this project. And at that time, the State Water Resources Control Board provided an opportunity for a 1% interest loan through its Clean Water State Revolving Fund program and Proposition 1 grant funding. So West Basin was awarded funding and the Board of Directors had authorized entering into an agreement with the State Water Resources Control Board. Included in this memo under attachment B is a copy of the original agreement. So since the early part of last year, staff has been working with the State Water Resources Control Board in their review of the amendments for the project expansion in light of the fact that there were new factors associated with the project expansion. The State Water Resources Control Board has agreed to finance up to $23,833,808 at an interest rate of 1%. And then upon completion of the project construction, they would provide grant funding from Proposition 1 up to an amount of $8,078,282. So in addition, it is worth noting that the California Water Service Retail Agency, they will contribute $4 million towards funding for this project as well. So outlined in this memo is the project expansion will increase recycled water delivery to the Marathon Carson Refinery by 1,231,000 acre feet a year by upgrading and expanding facilities to increase both the reliability and production capabilities. So in summary, the State Water Resources Control Board has provided the amended funding agreement to West Basin to revise the work completion date, the final disbursement date, and scope of work for this project. The State Water Resources Control Board agrees to finance the project with the interest rate of 1%. And as I mentioned, upon completion, they would provide grant funding under Proposition 1. And the term of this amendment is through July 31st, 2048. So it is recommended that the board authorize the general manager to sign the amended funding agreement with the State Water Resources Control Board to finance construction costs related to the project. And included under attachment A is the amended funding agreement. So that is a summary of where we're at, and I'd like to read the recommendation. So the recommendation, thank you. So the recommendation is that the board authorize the general manager to execute funding agreement number D16-01022, Amendment 1 with the California State Water Resources Control Board, and authorize the general manager or designee to execute and carry out said agreement to obtain funding to receive financial assistance or eligible cost of the project. Thank you.
This is Don there. I move approval of the recommendation.
All right, Don, thank you. And I agree. Are there any questions of any of the board members? All right, the recommendations move to the full board. And the next item, please.
Yes, Madam Chair, that moves us to our information counter, item 6 on the agenda. The first item under the information counter is item 6A, and I'm very excited to introduce this item. It is an update on the Integrated Regional Water Management Program activities. This is something that in the past we have received requests from members of the Board of Directors to bring back on occasion kind of an overview and update on what we're working on when it comes to integrated regional water management. And I'm very pleased because Tammy, although she had the opportunity to present the last 2 items, I'm excited to have her present on this item as well, because West Basin has a very long history of working with the Greater LA County Integrated Regional Water Management Group. And because of that, our involvement is very well entrenched in everything that the region does. And this goes back to former staff members, Leanne Kirk, really kind of leading the charge, and we've developed a very strong reputation when it comes to working with the Greater LA County area. And Tammy, coming to West Basin, has really jumped in and taken it on her shoulders to kind of lead our effort. So for this presentation, we do have Tammy Hurley High for the presentation.
Okay, thank you, Tammy.
Thank you. Thanks. So yeah, this information on this memo will cover 4 different areas of activities that are happening at the IRWIMP region. So one is the Prop 1 Round 1 funding solicitation. Second is West Basin eligible projects for this funding. South Bay IRWIMP subregion activities, and then finally the contract activities for the Greater Los Angeles IRWIMP. So this information begins on page 146 of the committee packet. And the first area to update is the Proposition 1 Round 2 call for projects. So in May 2022, the Department of Water Resources released a proposal solicitation package for Proposition 1 Round 2 IRWIMP implementation grant funding. And in response to this solicitation announcement, all local IRWIMP regions have issued a call for projects in order to seek eligible projects for inclusion of a grant application to DWR. So for this round of funding, there are 2 separate funding allocations. One is a general implementation project for the Greater Los Angeles County region. And for the general implementation funding request, the total amount available to the Greater Los Angeles region is $17,150,000. That amount is divided up among the 5 local subregions for an allocated amount of $3.43 million for each subregion. And then the second area of funding is for the disadvantaged communities implementation projects for the greater Los Angeles County area, Ventura area, and Upper Santa Clara River regions. So for the disadvantaged community implementation funding request, that total amount is $6.37 million. Again, that's available to 3 IRWIMP regions. So for both funding categories, all projects must be presented to their respective subregion committee for review and consideration prior to advancing to the Disadvantaged Community Involvement Program Task Force. And the proposed projects are currently being reviewed by each of the subregions through a competitive process, and this is anticipated to be completed by December. So successful projects that have been selected will be advanced to the Greater Los Angeles County Leadership Committee for consideration of inclusion in the grant application that will be submitted to DWR in January. So the next area I'd like to talk about is the West Basin eligible projects. So staff has identified 2 projects that are eligible for the district to propose during this selection process under Prop 1 Round 2. And the first is the Harbor South Bay Water Recycling Project. And this project would provide new recycled water pipelines to public schools and parks located in the cities of Carson and Gardena. So the Carson lateral would provide recycled water for irrigation services to Curtis Middle School and Mills Park. And the Gardena lateral would provide recycled water for irrigation services to Perry Middle School and Mas Fukai Park. The grant request for this project would be a total of $2.41 million. And a proposal for this project has been presented to the South Bay subregion and submitted to the IRWIMP Disadvantaged Community Involvement Program Task Force for review and consideration. And the second project is titled the Drought Resiliency Water Conservation Program. So this would be a new water conservation project in partnership with the Las Virgenes Municipal Water District, Los Angeles County Waterworks Agency, and West Basin. This joint project would provide conservation devices and incentive to the public located within both of the North Santa Monica Bay and South Bay IRWIMP regions. And the grant request total is $635,000. A proposal for this project has also been submitted to the North Santa Monica Bay subregion for review and consideration by committee members. And then next is regarding activities with the South Bay IRWIMP subregion. West Basin continues to serve as chair of the South Bay subregion, with the city of Torrance serving as vice chair. And as indicated earlier, the Proposition 1 Round 2 process has allocated $3.43 million for eligible projects to submit proposals under the General Implementation Fund. So there are 3 local projects that have been presented to the South Bay Subregion Committee for consideration of the General Implementation Fund. And additionally, there are 4 projects that have been presented to this committee that are located in the South Bay subregion for consideration of advancement to the Disadvantaged Community Involvement Task Force in their request for Disadvantaged Community Implementation Funding. So lastly, regarding the Greater Los Angeles County IRWIMP Contract Administration. So as you're aware, West Basin has served a judicial role with the Greater Los Angeles County IRWIMP for many years. And as the contract administrator for consultant work, this has included selecting consultants to prepare the regional IRWIMP plan and grant application to DWR for prior solicitations. West Basin has been very active and has assisted in this role for the Proposition 50 grant application process, 2 rounds for Prop 84 grant applications, and Proposition 1 Round 1. In addition, West Basin currently manages consulting contracts on behalf of the Los Angeles, Ventura, and Upper Santa Clara River IRWIMP for Proposition 84 Disadvantaged Community Involvement Program and the Los Angeles IRWIMP Opti Online Database Upgrade. So in an effort to prepare a grant application to DWR for the Prop 1 Round 2 process, the Greater Los Angeles County IRWIMP is seeking assistance from West Basin to release a solicitation for competitive proposals. So West Basin staff has worked alongside with representatives from the Los Angeles County Flood Control District to prepare a request for proposals to solicit competitive proposals from consulting firms. And the proposal responses will be evaluated by both West Basin and the county staff. And the management of the Greater Los Angeles County IRWIMP region consists of a leadership committee who will participate in the evaluation panel for this RFP. We anticipate bringing the results of the RFP proposal evaluation process to your board for consideration in October. And then afterwards, the selected consultant would be brought to the Greater Los Angeles County Leadership Committee for their acceptance and ratification. So that concludes the update on the IRWIMP area, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Yes, I have a question. May I?
Sure.
Okay, the very first pipeline you mentioned, it's one of the first ones was in Gardena, Jessica Carson was the Gardena one. You said it was to provide recycled water to Perry Middle School, and what was the other location?
Correct. Perry Middle School and Mosfeq High Park.
Mosfeq Park. Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
All right. Any other
A
questions?
need for a motion, I approve approval.
Madam Chair,
All right.
I believe that Director Williams is requesting to speak.
Yeah, it's,
Right.
thank you. Yes, I am, Madam Mayor, excuse me, Madam Chair. I just want to say that I'm very excited about this. These sound very, very exciting. I can't wait for us to get underway with these. Thank you so very much, Tammy, for bringing these forward.
Great.
Great. Thank you.
That's wonderful.
That's
Thank
it.
you,
Thank you.
Tammy. Great.
Thank you.
All right. Any other comments or questions? If not, we'll move to the next item, please, EJ.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. The next item that we have is under item 6B. It is our legislative update for August 2022. It begins on packet page 149 of your agenda. And actually, I'll just skip forward to packet page 151 for the state legislative update. I'll be providing an overview of that. And then, of course, we'll have Matt Vey on board for the federal affairs update. So as you know, the 2022 legislative session has come to an end at the very early start of September. And as part of that, that begins the process of getting bills to the governor's desk, and they are now awaiting his action. Those bills do have a time frame as far as when they can be signed or vetoed, and that does end at the very end of this month on September 30th. So West Basin staff is going to continue to track that effort. And I think more importantly, we'll be working with our lobbyist, Niamela Pappas and Associates, on several of those bills. Obviously, those that we have action on as far as a specific position, trying to do everything that we can to ensure that those bills ultimately get signed. You know, it really came down to a very unique end of the legislative session because clearly Governor Newsom was really pushing hard on climate action as far as the legislative proposals go, and specifically seeking to utilize surplus funds in the tune of approximately $15 billion to finance programs primarily relating to water and power. And of course, these things are near and dear to West Basin Municipal Water District, of course. But I think that if you look at what's happening throughout the state of California, it really draws additional attention to that because we are in the third year of an extreme drought condition, but also towards the end of August and of course the early part of September, you did have significant heat waves throughout the state of California, really exacerbating the issues and of course putting the state of California in further fire danger. The governor did push a very strong agenda with 5 specific items. First, he asked that as the state transitions to a post-pandemic or COVID-19 policy, that the state seek the state is seeing a rise in monkeypox. So you have seen a state declared emergency related to that. Also ensuring that the electrical grid is reliable. And of course, as I just mentioned, with the significant heat waves throughout the state of California, that was something that was near and dear to everybody. Number 3, managing the drought and really pushing water conservation and the prevention of wildfires. Number 4, helping consumers deal with the increased costs of inflation and supply chain problems. And number 5, ensuring the adequate reserves to withstand another downturn in the economy. And we have seen this, and people were very much trying to prepare for that. California, obviously, through the COVID-19 pandemic, did extremely well as far as their budgeting, their proposed budget and adopted budget, and then of course seeing those reserves, and they've been able to put that to I think significant use. And if you turn to packet page 152, there's nothing better to highlight, obviously, than the California State Legislature and the governor's action when it comes to the climate package that was passed. Did include $54 billion climate investment package. And when we talk about that $54 billion, a lot of people are saying, oh, is it going to be spent today, tomorrow, and in the very near future? And what you are seeing is kind of this package of how to fund specific programs and projects. And they did actually provide themselves with some time because of the way they packaged those specific bills. But really worth noting is that there is $100 million for water recycling projects. And I bring that up because I really want to showcase and highlight the activities of several of our stakeholder groups. You know, a lot of people talk about our memberships to organizations like California Water Reuse, and of course the Association of California Water Agencies, ACWA, and really working with them to push these kind of incentives to invest in water recycling is a significant part of what they do and why we're a big part of that. So it's great to see that there's $100 million for that. West Basin has been a leader as far as the water filling stations. And you can see that there's $5 million for that, specifically related to schools. And I know that we've had a lot of discussions with several stakeholders, including Surfrider Foundation and Craig Cadwalader, when it comes to this. So it was great to see that there's $5 million for school districts to go and get that. And if you think about that, for a school district that's in the West Basin service area, if they were to go apply for a grant to change those out and they were to work with West Basin Municipal Water District when it comes to our water bottle filling station grant program, ultimately they would be able to do a lot more with less. And so West Basin could partner up with those school districts, and ultimately those that effort would be free to them now if you coupled West Basin's grant with the state grant. So we're excited to see that. But I think for the bigger picture, you can see down there are several bullets down. There's $210 million available in the fiscal year 2023 and 2024 year for the State Water Resources Control Board for direct potable reuse projects. And I think that that is a great thing to see. Again, I always try to highlight this through the leadership of the West Basin Board of Directors. West Basin has been a leader when it comes to pushing policies at the state level for the adoption of both direct and indirect potable reuse. When we talk about potable reuse, I think there's no agency that has kind of a better track record when it comes to pushing these policies. So to see this $210 million, I think that that is a great thing to see. And of course, West Basin has a potable reuse facility in the Edward C. Little facility. And of course, Metropolitan Water District when it comes to their pure water program. And then of course, the city of Los Angeles, when you look at the Hyperion 2035 or Operation Next. It is great to see these funds available because it really will go a long way as far as incentivizing communities to really push for this effort. So if we can turn, I kind of highlighted the different components of the climate package and the climate investment package. But if you look at the bottom of packet page 152, you can see the start of the list of several of those bills, including Senate Bill 846 by Senator Dodd and Assembly Bill 2133 by Assemblymember Quirk, really pushing this initiative as far as the reduction in greenhouse gas emissions and, of course, carbon neutrality in the state of California. All of the bills are listed that make up that package on the next page, on packet page 153. It's exciting to see that Assemblymember Al Murasucci was a big part of this in his Assembly Bill 1279. He, of course, represents a large portion of the West Basin service area, so we were excited to see that. But I think that as you look at this, it shows that the California State Legislature, both the Assembly and in the Senate, did a great job of balancing kind of the future policies of the state of California when it comes to carbon neutrality. And then, of course, the realities of where we are today, because it's worth noting that there was extensive discussions related to the Diablo facility and specifically, the Diablo Canyon Power Plant. And to see the governor work with both the Assembly and the Senate as far as reauthorizing that facility, I think it showed that we all can work together. Not everybody fully supports that effort, but really the heat wave and the power concerns of the California State Legislature really won out in those discussions. And ultimately, they were able to come together for the reauthorization of that. So I do want to highlight some bills real quick. And I'll begin on packet page 154 because we have some great news just from yesterday. West Basin staff, both the general manager, Greg Reed, and myself met with Metropolitan Water District and a group of stakeholders when it comes to the discussions of recycled water within the region. And I wanted to highlight that Assembly Bill 1845 by Assemblymember Calderon, it is related to Metropolitan Water District of Southern California and the alternative project delivery methods. This is a bill that Metropolitan Water District put a lot of effort into because they really wanted to see if they can find that alternative approach to constructing pure water sooner than later, with the idea of producing what they would call expedited delivery of recycled water. And this bill not only passed through the California State Legislature, which I think was a huge success story, but ultimately was signed by the governor very recently. And so I think that is something that you'll hear about in years to come, because I think it's going to really help Metropolitan Water District as they start to weigh their options. I also want to highlight Assembly Bill 1655 by Assemblymember Reggie Jones Sawyer. This is related to the Juneteenth state holiday. Clearly, it passed through the California State Legislature. Pretty much universal support. That bill is still pending on the governor's desk. I would expect an announcement very soon on that. Assembly Bill 2142 by Assemblymember Gabrielle related to income taxes. This is something that I think for the West Basin service area, we've really taken a lead on. We do have a support position on this bill. It would provide a tax exemption for those turf removal rebates. The bill is still pending on the governor's desk, and we're very hopeful that he will sign that. Another bill that we've talked about for the past 2 years is Senate Bill 222 by Senator Dodd. This is related to a water rate assistance program. And I bring this up because I think as within the industry, as they begin to talk about this bill, I think you'll start to hear a little bit more of kind of the policies behind it. The bill was introduced last year. It failed to pass out. All of the stakeholders, including ACWA, California Water Reuse, the California Special Districts Association, the California Municipal Utilities Association, most of those associations were all opposed on this bill. Ultimately, several of those organizations moved to an oppose unless amended and really fought for amendments throughout this legislative session. At the very end, the bill got amended and ultimately passed with some concessions made by the author. And I think as they start to look at this and specifically how you provide this ratepayer assistance program, I think it's going to be important for us to kind of look at that, because ultimately you're going to have to provide long-term funding for that program. And I think in order to wrap this up, there's a lot of great information in here. I did want to highlight Assembly Bill 2449, and that is on packet page 167. It is in your bill packet. This bill was ultimately passed by the California State Legislature. It is at the governor's desk. It was one of the last bills to kind of make it through. And I wanted to highlight this because it does relate to the open meetings and local agencies teleconferences. The bill would revise and recast all of those changes that were made to the Brown Act, allowing agencies like West Basin Municipal Water District to meet virtually. This would amend those policies and actually extend it out to January 1st of 2026. All of the same requirements would be incorporated in there, but I wanted to highlight this because you will see a change in kind of how we structure and organize meetings, not just West Basin, but also as an industry within special districts that are required to perform under the Brown Act. You will see that. And so I believe that bill is still pending. It is what's called enrolled, so it's awaiting the governor's action. So you could see potential action there. I'm not exactly sure what will happen with it, but we hope to find out as soon as possible. And before I hand it off to Matt Vey, I do want to mention one thing, and then I'm happy to take any questions that you might have. We have been in contact and working with our lobbyists, both our state and federal lobbyists. And the reason for that is at the end of a legislative session, and of course, during and after an election period, we always like to have them come down, visit with us in person, and provide a great overview of everything that they've been working on, and of course, what is to come. And so we have been in contact with Miamela Pappas and Associates, and I do believe, or I would expect that they would join us for our November committee or board meeting. So we'll work with Greg Reed to schedule that, whether it would be better to have it at a committee or board meeting. But we're excited to have them come down. And then by then they'll be able to kind of walk us through some of these things that are still pending, waiting for the governor's action. But of course, also talk a little bit about the election results that'll happen in early November. So we think that that'll be an excellent opportunity to kind of see Miamela Pappas and Associates again. It's great to see them, but also learn a little bit more about what's happening. So with that, Madam Chair, I'm happy to answer any questions. I know that was a lot, but it's the end of the legislative session. And we still do have our federal affairs update, which will be provided by Matt Vey.
All right, thank you, EJ. Are there any questions? All right, I think you can proceed.
All right, Matt, take it away.
All right, thank you, EJ. So I'm now on page 182 of the agenda packet. And I have just a brief update for this month's federal affairs report. The first thing that I want to report on is that both houses of Congress returned to session last week after their summer recess. But they're not expected to tackle too many more issues at this time before they go kind of on their separate ways to campaign for the midterm elections that are set to take place in November. And so while the government is currently funded through the end of this fiscal year through September 30th, so Congress really only has 10 more days until September 30th to enact a continuing resolution, or they could risk a partial government shutdown. This is kind of what happened last year. The spending bills that they would use are not all passed yet, and so they're looking at a continuing resolution as a temporary funding measure. So members of Congress are attempting to come to an agreement on a new continuing resolution, which, if passed, would keep the government running for a short period of time. Some of the more public proposals have specified through mid-December, so it would be about a 3-month or so period of time. But that process could be impacted by something that President Biden's trying to do. He's trying to get about $50 billion in various emergency funds that he's requesting to be part of the continuing resolution. Those would include things such as continued funding for COVID relief, for the war assistance with Ukraine, and a number of other priorities. So that'll impact the discussions going forward. On the non-continuing resolution front, Congress still has work to do to pass their spending bills for fiscal year 23. The House has actually made headway on half of their spending bills. They've passed 6 of the 12 that they have so far, but the Senate has yet to pass any of their bills yet. And just as a note, as a reminder, West Basin does not have any pending funding requests as part of this year's budget all of our previous federal funding requests, which apply to the two recycled water projects that Tammy talked about. Those were funded in the last year's budget via the congressionally directed funding requests process. So nothing this year at this time. And then I also wanted to mention that the Colorado River Basin states continue to discuss options for cutting use of Colorado River supplies. All of the stakeholders in the lower and upper basins are still expected to develop an agreed upon plan that would cut use of the Colorado River by 2 to 4 million acre feet. They had been given a deadline of last month to put forth an agreement plan, but that didn't happen. And then the Bureau of Reclamation actually ended up giving them kind of an extension indefinitely to do that. So there's no agreed upon proposal at this time, so they're still in discussions. And according to officials in the states of Arizona and Nevada, California has so far shot down proposals from both states to cut use by more than 2 million acre feet. And they're calling on California to step up and to put forth shared cuts that meets the government's calls for reduced water use on the river. So I think you're going to continue to see stakeholders from California and the other states kind of utilize the media attention to place pressure on each other for getting a deal in place while the actual work kind of goes on behind the scenes. And then my final federal update is that the EPA, the US EPA, has proposed new rules that would designate two PFAS chemicals. The PFAS chemicals are the quote unquote forever chemicals. They would designate those PFAS chemicals as hazardous substances under what is essentially the Superfund law. So in addition to potential impacts on the drinking water and wastewater industry, the rulemaking that the EPA proposed could require existing Superfund sites to remediate PFAS issues, and it could also create new Superfund sites that are specific to PFAS contamination. There's definitely some concern out there in the industry that water and wastewater utilities could be deemed liable for cleaning up PFAS, really due to no fault of their own, but more as a result of the treatment and disposal processes that involve PFAS that were generated by kind of upstream sources. In addition, businesses and industries that are known for creating PFAS could also be on the hook for cleaning up known contamination sites. So at this time, it's not entirely known as to what the impact will be on West Basin. We do know that there will be some effect on metropolitan and other Southern California communities with higher incidences of PFAS in their service area. Luckily, we don't have that quite the same amount of concerns as other areas, but it's something that we'll be tracking. One thing that we'll be evaluating in light of this ruling is that as a downstream user of Hyperion wastewater, whether West Basin could be impacted by a Superfund ruling that happens elsewhere, kind of upstream in LA County. So we're going to work with our ops team and with our federal lobbyists to track that situation, track that new rule, and we'll keep the board apprised of any relevant updates to that law. And so that concludes my federal affairs report. There's additional updates available in VSA's monthly report that begins on page 182 of your packet. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Matt. Are there any questions? Hearing none, thank you, Matt, for that thorough report, and EJ, thank you. What's the next item, please?
Madam Chair, the last item under our information calendar is item 6C. It's our monthly Metropolitan Water District program update. And for this presentation, we do have Tammy Hurley. Hi.
Thank you,
Thank you.
EJ. Hello again. So this Metropolitan update it's a summary of activities that include a few areas also that I wanted to highlight that include the annual drinking water quality report, the non-functional curb policy alternatives, the ad valorem property taxes, and assessed valuation. So this information starts on page 186 of the committee packet. First off, on the 2022 Annual Drinking Water Quality Report, Metropolitan has recently released their annual report for drinking water quality for calendar year 2021, and it is posted on their website for more information. And Metropolitan monitors over 400 constituents and performs about 200,000 tests on samples collected throughout their entire system each year. And that report highlights Metropolitan continued focus on source water protection and also summarizes the measures that Metropolitan had taken at their water quality lab in order to comply with new laboratory accreditation regulations that have been set forth by the State Water Resources Control Board in 2021. So next is a policy alternative for non-functional turf. The Metropolitan staff will be proposing policy alternative to address non-functional turf by expanding options and offering more tools for retail water agencies. With a statewide call to ban irrigation on non-functional turf, Metropolitan can support local agencies in this effort to further reduce outdoor irrigation. And their staff has identified 4 primary alternatives that could address the issue of using potable water for irrigating non-functional turf areas. And those include incentives that are similar to the existing rebate program to encourage the removal of non-functional turf and replace it with California-friendly landscapes. The second is promote a model ordinance, and that would be for local governmental agencies. They could voluntarily adopt an ordinance to ban watering of non-functional turf with potable water. The third would be to establish a water allocation method, which would curtail imported water supply use on non-functional turf during a declared emergency situation. And then fourth would be to seek legislation in order to permanently ban irrigation of non-functional turf with potable water. So this could be modeled after the State Water Resources Control Board emergency regulation. And these alternatives could be implemented individually or they could be used in combination. And every year, the Metropolitan Board adopts legislative priorities and principles, as you know. So last fall, the priority did include a section that described support administrative legislative actions and funding to improve water use efficiency through non-functional turf management. So this item will be brought to the Metropolitan's One Water Conservation Committee, which will be next Tuesday, September 27th at 11 a.m. for further discussion on alternatives and action. And so the next item is the ad valorem property taxes for fiscal year 2022-23. And the Metropolitan Board adopted a resolution to levy ad valorem property taxes for this fiscal year. And in order for Metropolitan to pay its debt service on its general obligation bonds and to pay a portion of its state water contract obligations, the ad valorem property taxes are collected from all non-exempt properties within its service area. And this tax rate is the lowest rate ever assessed. And since 2012, Metropolitan tax rate has been maintained at 0.0035%. And this is equivalent to approximately $25 per year for a property value assessed at $700,000. And moving on to the assessed valuation. On an annual basis, Metropolitan receives certified assessed valuations from each of the county auditor controllers where Metropolitan provides water service to. And the results of these assessed valuation are important, and it is a key component to determining the member agency vote entitlement. So based on the information received, the certified assessed valuation for Metropolitan's 6 county service area totaled $3.62 trillion. So shown in this memo on page 188 of the committee packet, it shows a breakdown of the total assessed valuation by the respective county auditors. And West Basin's percent of Metropolitan's assessed valuation slightly increased this year. It is now at 7.2% compared to last year, which was at 6.99%. And then moving on, regarding the board actions, attached to this memo under attachment A is a list of items that were approved last month in August, along with the respective board member votes. And a list of the draft agenda item for September is also included under attachment C. And it is worth noting that there was one item for, that the board discussed, but then they deferred for continuing discussion next month. And that was item number 7.6, and that was to adopt the revision and restatement of Bay Delta policies. They did discuss it, and again, like I said, they wanted to defer it and continue the discussion next month. And then also included in this memo is just a brief look ahead of the Metropolitan agenda. So included, yeah, thank you, that starts on page 28. It lists a few anticipated key items that will be discussed and considered in October. As mentioned earlier, Metropolitan will discuss the action to address non-functional turf during the One Water Committee for Conservation and Local Resources. And then additional items important that are coming up include the nomination and election for board chair for a two-year term that will become effective January 1st, 2023. Adopt a revision and restatement of the Bay Delta policies, and an update on the Delta Conveyance Public Draft Environmental Impact Report and comment. So then lastly, just moving on to the water supply update, attached to this memo is a chart that includes the graphics for the current conditions. And then on the first page, so on the left side, on the green shaded area for the State Water Project, it's a Lake Oroville Reservoir shown. It's dropping and it is now at 38% of total capacity. And for the Colorado River Basin on the right side, this graph showed Lake Powell to be at 25% of capacity and Lake Mead at 28% capacity at elevation 1,043 feet. And the middle gray, or the middle of the page, it has a gray shaded box, 4 of them, to include the levels of their local storage. And included here is a table that shows the Metropolitan Wisdom storage. And Metropolitan is planning to use 880,000 acre feet in order to satisfy expected water demands on their system. And so if we look at the second page, it shows for the State Water Project, the Oroville on the green shaded area to the left is the Oroville Reservoir storage. The chart indicates about 1.26 million acre feet. And then for the Colorado River system, as you know, Lake Mead will operate under its first ever level 2A shortage condition beginning January 2023 as a result of the 24-month study issued by the Bureau of Reclamation. So in summary, this month of September ends the 2022 water year. And water year 2022 has marked the 3rd year of the current drought. And it is a 3rd record-setting multi-year drought of the 21st century. In California, there are a number of weather extremes for category 5 atmospheric river last October to an extraordinarily wet December. And then after that, the condition transitioned to a record-setting dry stretch that we're in right now. So as water year 2023 begins, there have been expectations for a 3rd year of La Nina conditions. However, a storm did begin over the weekend in Northern California, and there's potentially snow that will result from that of above 8,000 feet. So, well, more to come on that, and we'll see how the results pan out. So that concludes this update. I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Tammy, for that thorough update. Are there any questions? Okay, I don't hear anyone speaking, so can we go to the next item, please?
Yes, Madam Chair, that actually concludes our information item. However, I did want to point out one thing. I did misspeak during the legislative update on Assembly Bill 2449 when it comes to the open meetings law. Not only did that bill pass, but it was also signed by the governor. So that is what they would call chaptered. It is now set to become state law in January 1. So just want you to be aware of that. And that concludes the rest of the items. We do have, there are no closed session items under number 7. And then that would bring us to director comments and future agenda items under agenda item number 8.
Okay, thank you. Director's comments, please. Director, President Deere. All right, well, we'll go to Director Williams. We'll come back. Director Williams.
No, thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, Director Houston.
No comments. Thank you.
Director Deere, would you like to speak or can you unmute? All right, well, my comments are thank you to all of the staff members this morning. Really do appreciate the reports and all the work that you do. Thank you, EJ, for leading the discussion today, and thank you, board members. And with that, there's no other item on the agenda, correct, EJ?
That is correct.
All right, and thank you to the public, whomever was on the line. So thank you very much, and this committee meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. And thank you, staff, for all the great reports.